she followed him to the tomb. Now there was a man named Joseph, a member of the council, a good and upright man who had not consented to their decision and action. He came from the Judean town of Arimathea, and he himself was waiting for the kingdom of God. Going to Pilate, he asked for Jesus' body, and he took it down, wrapped it in a linen cloth, and placed it in the tomb cut in the rock, one in which no one had been laid. It was the preparation day, and the Sabbath was about to begin. The woman who had come with Jesus from Galilee followed Joseph and saw the tomb and how his body was laid in it. Then they went home and prepared spices and perfumes, but they rested on the Sabbath in obedience to the commandment. That's from Luke 23, 50 to 56. So I gave this talk back in February, but in the meantime, we went and actually saw the tomb. And it made this all just come alive. And now when you're in Israel, they tell you, now this might not be exactly where this happened, but it's very possible it happened here, okay? So this one is not, for sure, not the one Jesus was in. This one was actually just on the side of the road, and Melissa snapped a picture of it as we drove by on the bus. That's where this picture came from, when we were in Israel. Okay, you see the stone? I always thought of it as like a round ball-looking stone that rolled in front of the grave. But it wasn't. It was a stone like this, like a coin that was rolled in front of the grave. Since Jesus had died around 3 in the afternoon, and the Sabbath began at sundown around 6, they only had 3 hours to get him down and prepare his body for burial. Okay, so likely the men did that. They took him down, took him there, and prepared him for burial. And he didn't get the proper burial because they didn't have time. They took 70 pounds of spices. You know, when I'm thinking they prepared him with a body with spices, I'm thinking, like shake a little cinnamon, not 70 pounds, right? Wow. 70 pounds of spices. Okay, now this next picture is where most people believe, this is actually the site of the tomb. And they have a lot of reasons to believe that this was actually it. And I just wanted to show y'all the diagram first. Is there something I can do to not ring?
Your face is the speaker.
Come out here a little ways.
He wants to bring the podium forward.
Okay, that will help me. Okay, but in this picture you can see that, now I'm getting closer to the camera.
Okay.
You can see that on the left is a preparation room. That was the room where the body was laid for them to prepare. It was also like a mourning room. And on the right, this is all cut into the stone, okay? And on the right, on the left-hand side was where they placed one body, and then they had the center part, and then on the right-hand side was another body. They were made, these were made for like families, okay? And the bodies were laid there for a year, and after a year, now I might be having some of this wrong, but it's generally the right, okay? After a year, they would gather the bones and place them, is it somewhere in there too? I don't remember.
Ossuary box.
Box,
ossuary.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, they would place them in that box, okay? So, the next picture is actually looking at this tomb from where we were, okay? You see the hole is actually the door, and to the right is a small window. Okay, go on to the next one. They allowed us to go in there for just a split second. So we were able to go in there, see it, and walk back out. And we weren't supposed to be taking pictures. I mean, we weren't even supposed to hesitate that long, but I was able to get a picture of the princess exiting the tomb. Yes. The threshold. Oh, she's going through a threshold. Oh, she sure is. Okay, you can go on. Okay, this is this princess going in through this threshold, okay? But what I wanted you to see in this, besides my hot husband, was do you see that the the crevice along the side, and that's at an angle. So that rock was rolled over the opening. Isn't that cool? Yeah. And it went down in a little hump, you know, when it stopped. So you couldn't just go over there and hit that rock and it would just roll back off. That's why it would take several men to move that stone away from the opening. Okay?
What month was this that you all?
March and April. It was cold. Okay, you can go on. You don't have any more? Oh, what about the garden? Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. Okay, the other reason that they believe that this is the actual site was because it is in a beautiful garden. And this is part of the garden area that was out there in front of the tomb. Isn't that pretty? Being seen near the grave of an enemy of the state was just as risky as being found in the proximity of the cross. So Mary had lost her whole world. It was like her whole family. It was everything. Everything she believed in, everything she knew as truth, everything was gone. So they trudged home with grieving hearts, and never was a sadder Sabbath spent in the history of the world than when the Son of God was laid in the tomb. Mary and her godly girlfriends were not able to anoint his body until after the Sabbath. So do y'all remember a time when y'all just been about to bust waiting on something? Well, recently, a couple of times in January, Brady and his wife had a baby, and you know, it was one of those counting the days, counting the hours, you know, and such an exciting time. This wasn't like that. This wasn't a looking forward to the future. This was a grief and wanting to love on her Savior. So how do we worship while we wait? A few months back, our daughter Chelsea, she's had lots of complications from diabetes. She's had it since she was 7. And she had gone blind in one eye, and they were doing a surgery on her that was supposed to help. And so they had done the surgery, and Keith and I were waiting in the waiting room, and they said, only one can come back. And so Keith went, and I'm sitting there, you know, just waiting. And I'm rocking, you know, in my chair, you know, and all of a sudden, you know how they have the glass windows that go in front of the receptionist? The glass just exploded. It was like somebody had shot a gun and hit it. And I promise it wasn't because of me worshiping in a loud, beautiful voice. But that's what I felt like doing. You know, I felt like I was going to bust, because I was sitting there waiting to hear if her vision was going to be restored. It seemed like it was forever. But then Keith comes in the front door, and they told him everything's great. He'd gone to pull the car around. You know, but you're just shattering. You know? Walking in the way of your laws, we wait for you. Your name and renown are the desire of our hearts. That's Isaiah 26:8. Waiting is passive, but it's anything but passive. I'm wanting to explode like that glass. Walking in the way of your laws. So we're not idle. We're walking. I had a similar story with Sheila having a business of your own, except I'm on the other side of it, and you will get through this, okay? We had a clothing store for over 30 years, and some of those years were really, really hard, real hard. And like so hard, we'd get 90 days behind on bills, we didn't pay ourselves, it was really tough. And one of those days, I had gone into work early, and I just laid down on the floor and I was just bawling, because every day all it was fielding telephone calls telling them I couldn't pay them. And so Keith came in and found me crying, and he said, let's just pray. And so we just sat down in the office and prayed. This is before anybody got there or we opened or anything. So we just prayed, just a simple prayer, God, you know this, you got it. We don't know what to do. Because we wanted to give up so many times and just didn't feel like, we didn't hear him say, do it, stop. So we prayed, turned on the lights, put the smile on our face, everything's okay, And after our help got there, we decided to go to Walmart just to get away. And so we went to Walmart together. And this prophet that has gone on to be with Jesus now, Marcia Sanders, she came running in there. We heard her because she wore heels everywhere. And we heard her running down the aisles. And she said, I found you. I found you. And she had come to tell us that God said, don't give up. I mean, she was right on time. So don't give up. But you will know when it's time to lay it down.
Yeah.
You will know. Because we didn't, and it didn't immediately get easier. But it did get easier, and we started making a profit, and it turned out to where business was good again. And the day came, and I was sitting there at my computer, and I knew it was time, and it was time, and it happened like within a week. After God told us it's done.
Yeah.
Also, another time of waiting, we lived in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, which was fine until you have three kids. And we lived there 13 years, and the last 3 years, no, it was longer than that. Was it 7? 7 years we looked. We looked for land, we looked for our home, and I would have taken anything that had 2 bathrooms. I mean, anything. One of them, you could see daylight through the wall outside, and I'm like, I can fix that. It's okay. It worked. But none of them were right, and Keith is so, he's good. He's real good. And he said, no, we're going to wait on Isaac. We're not going to settle for Ishmael. And so every day I would go home after those disappointing times, and I would sit in the backyard and I would pull weeds and bawl. Pull weeds and bawl. There were a lot of weeds. I had plenty of weeds I could work on. And God would tell me, take care of what you've got and I'll give you more. And so I've held on to that. He did. And that's still such a good principle. Take care of what you've got and I'll give you more. If you're driving a shoddy car and you're not taking care of it, God ain't going to give you another one. I'll just tell you that, okay? He wants to make sure you can take care of what he's already trusted you with. Okay, so this story can get longer and longer, but Keith turned 70 last month, and he was ready to retire. So he wanted me to go to work. so he'd been trying to get me to get my real estate license for years and years, and I just, I didn't want to. I was perfectly happy, going to junk sales and redoing furniture, but he wanted me to do it. Honestly, I didn't think I was smart enough. Because I'm not a detail person, and anyway, that's a whole nother story. But so anyway, finally one day, it's just like God just told me, just like that deal. It was time. And when he did, he took away my desire to redo the furniture. I mean, that's completely gone, and that's such a weird thing for me. I could have never dreamed that would have happened. But I started studying, and it was hard. It'd been 40 years since I'd been to school, and I was doing it all on my own. But I started studying, I studied. And it took me 6 months, and it's supposed to, the class was 6 months, but a lot of people finish it in like 2 weeks, but not me. But anyway, so I took the whole time, and I got the okay to take the test the Friday before we were leaving the next Thursday to go to Israel. And up until that time, I just knew there was no way I would be able to take it, logistically, because it takes several weeks once you've passed all your stuff to be able to take the test. Well, and then that Friday, I look on there and it says I'm good to go, and I'm like, okay, now I don't know, because I hadn't been studying now, because I'm getting ready to go to Israel. Well, so I said, okay, God, if I can schedule this test and have it and do it on Tuesday, I will take it. So that'll give me one more day to get ready. So, of course, I looked it up, and of course, Tuesday. I was able to take it. So Monday evening, Trina texted me for some reason. Where's she? Is she in here? She back there? Okay. Trina texted me and she said, you know, how's your studying going? Well, I had just gotten to the point to where I'd gone back through the review book. I had decided I was going to go through both review books 3 times, then I would feel good. You know how you set these goals. I'd gone through one of them 3 times, I'd gone through the other one time, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. I'm wore out. I couldn't comprehend it anymore. So I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to see if there's a movie on, and we just got Netflix. We're just now in the land of the living. So Christopher Robin was on, and you know, it's like, I don't want to watch this, and I don't have no kids to watch it with, but I don't see anything else that's kind of mindless that would, you know. So I just started watching it. Well, so about that time, Trina texted me, and she said, how's the studying going? And I said, well, I'm just sitting here watching this movie like I don't have anything else to do. Doing nothing, you know. I don't know if y'all have seen this, but this just screamed out at me. Christopher Robin was busy, you know, he's an adult now, and he was busy with his family. I mean, trying to make a living. And then finally he just shuts down. And who tells him doing nothing often leads to the very best of something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I looked and it's all over the internet. I was like, that's what I'm doing. It's the very best of something. I don't have to feel guilty about not studying anymore. I'm done, okay? I was done. And I passed the test, and the rest is history. James 1:2-4 says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. Let it do its stuff, okay? As you're going through that, that's a form of worship. Waiting is a form of worship because it's complete trust. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete. So that we can go through that threshold into maturity. This next excerpt is from Pat Reynolds' book, His Appointed Time. She's waiting for God to heal her, and He's going to. Sometimes God waits, and then He waits a little longer, and then there are times that He waits until it's too late. The prophet Samuel can tell you about God waiting until it was too late, when He held him back from going to King Saul. Mary and Martha have a story about Jesus waiting until it was too late when their brother died. But God did not wait until it was too late without purpose in mind. Bob Sorge, in his book, The Fire of Delayed Answers, makes the following statement. There is no hotter flame, in my opinion, than waiting on God. Nothing purifies us faster than when we have to wait on God. The greater the wait, the greater the work. Isn't that good? Mm-hmm. The greater the wait, the greater the work. God is exalted when we're humbled, and waiting is one of the most humbling things you will ever do. If God's blessings touch us before we're broken, we will find a way to accept partial credit. Mm-hmm. I gotta say that again. If God's blessings touch us before we're broken, we will find a way to accept partial credit. When God finds a man or a woman who is truly waiting on Him, He is free to act. Waiting on God is one of the highest spiritual disciplines. The highest dimensions of fruitfulness are entered only through this portal called waiting on God. I waited patiently for the Lord. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and He heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in Him. Psalm 41-3. God's delays are not denials. So, this is Hebrews 10:35-39. Don't lose your bold, courageous faith, for you are destined for a great reward. You need the strength of endurance to reveal the poetry of God's will, and then you will receive the promise in full. For soon and very soon, the one who is appearing will come without delay. And he also says, my righteous ones will live from my faith. But if fear holds them back, my soul is not content with them. But we are certainly not those who are held back by fear and perish. We are among those who have faith and experience true life. And then Psalms 46:10. Surrender your anxiety. Be silent and stop your striving, and you will see that I am God. I am the God above all the nations, and I will be exalted throughout the whole earth.